Welcome to Real Estate for Real People, hosted by Shannon and Tamara Stone. As award-winning real estate professionals, the Stone sisters have spent years helping people navigate the complexities of buying, selling, and investing in real estate. From first-time homebuyers to seasoned investors, Real Estate for Real People is the go-to resource for anyone looking to make smart decisions in the world of real estate. So sit back, relax, and get ready to learn from some of the best in the business.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in again to another episode of Real Estate for Real People. We wanted to chat with you today about values and expensive values for real estate, in the world and certainly right here in central Okanagan in Kelowna. And Shannon and I were talking about this because there was a notable sale, most expensive residential sale that has ever taken place in the U.S., according to the New York Times the other day. And it was a beautiful, spectacular, of course, condo. I think it was 20,000 square foot apartment in New York City overlooking Central Park. And it sold for $239 million.
Crazy.
American. That's like 5 trillion. So that got us talking about Kelowna values, and it seems expensive here until you look elsewhere. And let's jump into that.
Well,
Jen.
and I think, Tamara, that's a great point, right? Just it seems expensive here because lots of people locally, and even some people that are coming from other areas, look and go, well, Kelowna's starting to get expensive, but in the grand scheme of things, we're really not for all that Kelowna offers. And I know we're biased. Yes, we're realtors, but we've been born and raised here. We love it here. But the wineries, the lakes, the Four Seasons playground, all that we have really is hard to compare to. And it is, you hear us say this often, but it's hard to compare that to anywhere else in the world. Like Tamara, I think.
Well, we were just in Napa. We went to the Napa Valley, had a girlfriend's big birthday. She turned 25. If Tracy's listening, she'll love that. But we went to Napa Valley, and of course we've heard. I mean, we refer to the Okanagan Valley as Napa of the North, and we talk about that a lot. And it was a monumental trip, and it was really, really, really special. And went through some phenomenal wineries, and up and down this whole Napa Valley. And I kept looking around, going, "Yeah, this reminds me of Kelowna, or this reminds me of a Soyuz, but where's the lake? Like, you've got the hills and you've got the vineyards, but they don't have the water." And you talk about prices there. I mean, we had rented an Airbnb, and there was no history on that house, but the house next door had and it was their properties. They're on acres, but the one next door had sold for $13 million US 2 years ago. And I mean, values like that, and again, as you say, Shannon, I'm so biased, but look at what we've got here. And that was something kind of interesting, actually, because a lot of the wineries we went to, Camus and Silver Oak and some really very famous and extraordinary wineries, they all started in 1972. And when you look at the Okanagan Valley, our wineries started really 20 years later in 1992. So if you look at that and think, okay, well, Napa has such notoriety around the world and is so well respected and known. Are we just 20 years behind? And are we going to be there with their demand, and particularly with changing climate? I think we've got something good. I know I'm biased, but I don't think I'm that biased.
No, I don't think so.
So let's talk about what's going on in Kelowna here, because in the news lately there are some expensive ones.
Well, and it's funny because that one in New York sort of got Tamara and I talking, thinking, oh wow, and then we got onto this chat and we thought we should talk about this because other people are going to be interested to hear what's happening in the market in Kelowna in comparison to that one that's for 200 million in Kelowna, the most 239 just a few pennies. So in Kelowna, there was a property that became listed on MLS, and that property is the most expensive that's ever been for sale in Kelowna, and that's for just under 46 million. Beautiful home. Yep. It's I think it's 850 feet of waterfront, which is amazing. Over 8 acres in the water in Lake Country. The house is 20,000 square feet. Superb.
And it's spectacular.
It really is. Yep. It's just interesting. Kelowna.
By the time you add property transfer tax, you're at $50 million to purchase a home. And, will that sell? It may, honestly. It looks outstanding. And again, when we look at it from a local perspective, that's a lot of money. when you look at it for a national or international perspective and all the benefits and what you've got here, it starts to, 239 million US for a condo, or 46,000 Canadian for a whole spectacular estate on, that one's on acreage too. I can't remember
almost
how many
9 acres,
acres,
8.5 acres. Well, and then you compare it, Tamara, to the one you were just talking about when you're in Napa Valley and it sold for 13 million. 13 million for non-waterfront, probably an okay house, but it's probably not 20,000 square feet, exquisitely built. So, it starts to not look so bad and so much. So it's, when we look right now over 10 million, because of course this got Tamara and I fascinated looking at sort of the overall market, and over 10 million right now, there are 15 properties for sale in the Central Okanagan on MLS. So 15.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and even before I jump into sales, because it's, as we all know, and our listeners, as well, you can ask any price, and a lot of properties that are listed don't sell or can take years or, 10 years to sell. Things have shifted, and that of course was through slower markets. But, it's interesting because we've listed that little sliver of Lakeshore, down below Cedar Creek Winery, and, really interesting property that we put on the market about 3 weeks ago. And it's a little finger of land. It's very
It truly
long,
is a sliver of waterfront.
Yeah. Only 16 feet wide. And it's a grandfathered property from one of the pioneers in the Okanagan. And really, it's a recreational property. There's a little cabana there. There's a little dock there that's non-conforming, but you've got access to Okanagan Lake, and it's $1 million, just, a little over $1 million. And, we've had some reporters reach out about it, and it's certainly generating interest. And I think some people initially go, wow, $1 million. But then I look and go, well, 20 million or 46 million or what have you. Obviously way more home and way more property, et cetera. But it makes the $1 million little finger not look that bad.
It's so true.
So sales. Now, something important to understand, I think, is not all real estate sales go through MLS.
Good point.
The vast majority do, but not all properties sell. People could sell privately. Some people just don't wish to have the record of it go through the multiple listing system. But the vast majority, 99%, I think it's higher than that, 99.7% of all real estate transactions do go through the MLS. And when we go back in, as far back as the records go on our system, looking at sales over $10 million, there have only been 5. So Central Okanagan, going back for perpetuity, we've had 5 properties that have sold over $10 million. And of those, the most expensive that we've got on MLS, lots of these 5 were for redevelopment. So one that it was the most expensive, was $17.5 million. And that was a property that sold in 2021, redevelopment property over in West Kelowna. That was on 20 acres. Shannon, you've got the details of the most expensive single family home, not redevelopment, nothing else, just
so
house.
Let me actually look that up because I was looking up something else. But so that one most expensive was, no, that's okay. So the most expensive one that had sold for just over 11 million. And that one was out in Shearwater. So it is a waterfront exclusive development, outstanding property and home, great views, lots of trees. So it's really nestled along the woods, sort of to say, but offering that privacy and that sense of, that exclusivity with the neighborhood. So, but that was 11 million was the most expensive that we've seen.
Well, and we looked at that one sale carefully because we have just listed or are about to list a beautiful property in that same development in Shearwater. And to me, it is one of, if not the nicest property that's coming on the market in there. So. It's over 2 acres. It's got a little bay. It's, sort of out on a bit of a point with unobstructed views to the south and all the way up and around to the north. So you really can see from the bridge and then up towards Vernon. And we're listing that property for $4.5 million. And it's raw land. But when we look at some of these sales, you look at some of these, properties that are listed and then even some of the supporting sales, somebody could rebuild, or build their version of a dream home. And, the sky's the limit as to what you'll spend. but interesting that we are seeing some sales to support those dollar values.
Well, and I think too, there's also there's some value that you can build your own masterpiece. You're not taking over somebody else's idea of what they wanted for themselves. You can be creative and build exactly what you want. And I think, that when you're buying a property that's so unique and special like that, you want to make it your own. And you often probably are looking at this as a legacy almost in itself. And so to be able to build your legacy in that property, I think is pretty spectacular. And there's a lot of value in that. And truly, when we talk about, going back to what the market here is doing compared to Napa Valley and some of those things, to be able to get in now to build that masterpiece, I think you'd be doing well. Looking at it over the last 6 months, we've had 5 properties sell over $5 million. So the market, that high end market is growing for the Okanagan, certainly. I was talking.
Well, and we're recording this in April. Sorry, Shannon, I don't mean to interrupt, but we're recording this in April. So if you're going back 6 months, that's through the winter months. That was really through, interest rates have adjusted and come down. We're in a much, I guess I would say a much more confident sort of time. I think consumer confidence is better. Interest rates have come down a bit and people are feeling somewhat reassured. So sorry, keep going.
No, and actually it's good because then I was able to pull up as you're saying that. So of those properties, the average sale price of those over 5 million was 5.2. So that's kind of the average price. Average square footage is 5,100 square feet. So it's not huge. I mean, that does sound like a lot of square feet, but in these high-end homes, you're seeing 8,000, 10,000 square feet. So 20 in that one. So
very interesting. It's it is really interesting, and you see that. I know there were some shockwaves that rippled through the real estate market and through Kelowna when people heard that something here in central Okanagan is $46 million dollars, and yet when you look at the big picture and you look at quality of life, you look at we have an international airport, we have a great hospital, we have water. You look at the droughts that are happening and so on. And I really think we've got something really special here. And, that property will sell. What it will sell for, time will tell. But it's interesting how Kelowna is, on the map. Let's jump for a minute, Shannon, and lots of our listeners know this about us, but you and I, our shtick, I always say to people, is getting outside of the market and really acting as ambassadors for Kelowna. So tell us, you were in Toronto recently.
I was in Toronto last week. So I was there for the week. And then we were also just recently in Vancouver. And interestingly, looking at the markets are heating up everywhere. And, most of the, most city centers are seeing multiple offer situations happening. Not that they're selling over asking price in every case, but they are getting multiple offers. So multiple buyers are interested in the same property. I was talking to a Vancouver agent yesterday, and, he was talking about how their property values have actually increased quite significantly since December. He said the flurry of the market has come back. People in November, December, same as here, people were hesitant. They didn't quite know where the market was going to go. People didn't know what was going to happen with interest rates. So people were just on hold. So if you had to sell in that time, you were a little bit at the mercy of the market and most often we're maybe taking a little bit of a lower price point or what have you because of that uncertainty. And now, he said most properties, like he's actually was talking about a property that he sold back in December, and they're bringing it back out onto the market shortly, and it's going to be for $200,000 higher, and it will sell. And he thinks maybe even in multiple offers. And so he phoned to talk about, our market here and just wondering about price point. Cause he said, our buyers are going to all sell here and they want to move to the Okanagan because right now they can potentially, still sell there for a decent price and buy here for lower. But I think the word of the Okanagan is out on the street. And even when I was in Toronto talking to everybody there, everybody's talking about the Okanagan and what our values are doing. And I don't think for long we'll be able to necessarily sell and have, cash on hand and buy something here necessarily. We'll see.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've been traveling and promoting listings since you got in the business. So 2005, we're closing in on 20 years that was your idea to package up our listings and start really traveling and first selling Kelowna and then selling our properties. And of course it's been really good and really helps give exposure. When we started doing that, I mean, I remember it seemed to be, years ago, everybody in Alberta knew about Kelowna and or it seemed, wanted to buy here. And Vancouver, they knew about Kelowna, but they wanted to visit, not necessarily move here. And, fast forward to 2023, and it's not just Alberta who's moving here or Vancouver. I mean, Toronto, you and I are going there a lot because we're getting a lot of people who have discovered this paradise, this Okanagan Valley, and are wanting to be here.
And I think that ties into the fact that, yes, we have an international airport. We've, Kelowna as a general is doing a really good job in promoting the Okanagan too. The Economic Development Commission, and I think they're doing a good job on that. And I think it's just people look and think, well, that's where I want to be from a lifestyle perspective. And it's not just the sleepy town anymore. There's great restaurants here. There's, we have the high tech industry here. So there's a lot more here that's attracting.
We've got some culture. Yeah.
And I think that was a big thing for people, Vancouverites, was, well, where's the restaurants? And we have that now. So I think that's maybe part of why they're moving here.
Yeah. So our market here is certainly starting to pick up. I mean, there's, it's early yet. We've still got little traces. I can look out the window and see a little bit of snow in the hills still. And I often find that things don't really kick into gear here until it's hot, which we're due to hit 27, 28 degrees this weekend. And that should translate to increased real estate sales. I know on Facebook this morning, I was looking at, one of our realtors from one of the groups that we're part of in Toronto was talking about how there were 36 offers submitted on a property. And in the Toronto market, single family detached home, it was a little over $2.5 million list price. And you look at the number of offers they're getting, and I know they're seeing that in Lower Mainland. I don't think they're getting quite that many. But, you and I and our agents we're certainly starting to see some of those multiple offers and, one or two, lower price point. But
well, and I think something interesting too that we were talking about when I was in Toronto with a few of the realtors there is the investment market and looking at Kelowna as an investment compared to Toronto, Vancouver, and some of these other areas. And, our prices are lower than Vancouver, certainly lower than Toronto too. And our rents are actually pretty on par with Vancouver. So when you look at Kelowna and the Okanagan, the central Okanagan as an investment opportunity and an investment vehicle, it makes a lot more sense. Talking to the agents in Toronto and Vancouver, they said, people buy investment properties in our areas, but they're not buying it they're buying it for the long-term gain.
Cash flow.
They're not buying it to cash flow. Often they have to supplement those properties every month. But they're looking at just the appreciation. So they buy those properties going, okay, I'm going to hold on to this. I'm going to have to continue to pay for this and pay into it probably every month. But in 10 years, it's going to appreciate in value. Whereas, lots of buyers and investors that come to the Okanagan look and go, okay, if I put X amount down, and you have to put a fair amount down, but it's, positive cash flow and then the appreciation as well. So,
I was just going to say, you get both here,
which is nice.
So yeah, it's all just so interesting. When people sort of question, or I know we had people saying, I'm going to wait. Last fall, you and I were getting some of those calls that people would say, well, I'm going to wait. I'm nervous about the market. I think our prices are, really going to drop. They might drop as much as 40 or 50%. And I think, oh, no, I don't see it. And of course that hasn't happened. No. And, we're not seeing the escalation like we did through COVID. That was unprecedented and really chaotic, hard to even sort of fathom. But we are seeing a steady, increase and appreciation in values.
Well, we just don't have the supply.
Seeing sales of, and seeing, listings on the market for $46 million and seeing properties selling for, 10 million plus, 5 million plus.
Well, even we sold that property, the most expensive house that's sold in Kettle Valley for 4.4 non-waterfront. Yes. So
spectacular home. But yes. Yeah. $4.45 million for a home up in Kettle Valley. So it's, it makes the $1 million homes or the $2 million, $3 million, really there's some good value there, which I'm sure people are rolling their eyes or driving off the road if you're driving while listening to this. But it's, again, go back to that sale, that one, I want to print that that sale, beautiful condo, but strata fees in that $239 million property were $6,400 a month in the homeowner fees and the maintenance fee. So the purchase price is just the beginning.
Exactly. Yeah, it just continues on.
Kelowna is a deal. Buy everything. We're here to help.
Great way to end this. But in all sincerity, if you have any questions about the real estate market, we are always more than happy to help answer any of those questions. So please reach out and please thank you again for tuning in, and tune in next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Real Estate for Real People. If you want to reach out to the Stone Sisters, visit www.stonesisters.com. This podcast was produced by Podigy Podcasts. See you next time.